you just go for it and you put the effort in and you will succeed.
Talk about transferable skills. Most stuff is transferable.
Yeah.
You learn the nuts and bolts on the job. I did.
We do also have pictures of cars for our press images. Otherwise, people like you get really cross with us.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Women in the Driving Seat. This week we are looking at the luxury side of automotive. We're going to be discussing the customer experience, how luxury brands can grow their relationships with the consumer, the media and more. We'll also be looking at how you can make a global role work. Thank you very much to my two lovely guests for joining me today. We have Angie Ayscough and we have Emma Begley. Before we get going, we'll have a little look at your bios. Angie is the Battersea and Westfield studio manager for Genesis. She has worked there for 3 years. Before that, she worked in Selfridges for 5 years as VIP manager. And before that, she was working at Harrods for 10 years as senior customer experience manager, where she managed a team of 100 plus. She is 50 years old. I know I'm not, you genuinely don't look 50 years old. I'm not going to say that to every guest who comes in. She's married with a 24-year-old son and a 14-year-old daughter. She always needs a list to balance personal and work commitments, don't we all? Emma is the Director of Global Corporate Communications for Rolls-Royce Motor Cars. I love that full title. A job she's been doing for around 2.5 years, after 3 years in charge of PR for BMW UK. Before that, she lived and worked for 17 years in Germany. She's got 2 older teenage children and 2 absurdly affectionate cats. She loves the fact that she can walk to the market in the market town where she lives. I'm glad there is one. It reminds her why she's glad to be back in the UK and also helps her remember what day of the week it is, as life is sometimes just a little too busy to keep track. Hear, hear. Hello, welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Right, well, the first section to my podcast each week is plate spinning and balls dropped. What have you been up to this week? But I feel like I have to start with me because I was the one who was late for this recording this morning because I've pretty much dropped every ball in the way of children and public transport. But Emma, what's your week look like from a professional, personal point of view? What plates have you been spinning, balls dropped?
This week. So this time last week, I was in our regional office in Dubai in the Middle East. So that was fun. I had a good week there, meeting the team and travelling a tiny little bit around the region. And that was good. That was really good. And then I got home, met my son in London. We had a really nice evening actually with, it was really good. It's grown-up son. It's really fun. That's really nice. And then the drop ball was the next day. He was making pizzas and I'd said that I'd go and do the shopping and get everything. And I wanted to make a nice tomato sauce. And it got to, here's the dough and where's the tomato sauce, Mum? And I was like, oh yeah, I was going to make you one of those, wasn't I? And it just went out of my head because heads are full of lots and lots of things. Not only work stuff, but just lots of stuff. So
that is incredible though, given the role you've got and the fact you've been travelling so much, that's still on your agenda. And you got halfway there with the rest of the ingredients.
Yeah,
right?
and until he told me that actually shop bought ones are really much better for pizza because they've got less water in them. So.
Nothing like honesty.
But the thought that counts though, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And what about you, Angie? What have you been up to this week?
This week we've had a big car swap in Battersea, so we've swapped over all our studio cars. So I've been working on that.
So that's your ones that are on display?
On display.
Because you don't do test drives, do you?
We do test drives.
Oh, you do test drives from there?
Drives, yeah, from the studio. So we've swapped over all the actual cars in the studio and we're in the process of swapping over the fleet cars for test drives as well, for the new plates. Mm-hmm. And then also prepping for the swap for Westfield as well for next week. So been doing that. We've also launched a new system this week, end of last week. So it's training.
That strikes fear into the heart of me.
Yeah, of memory and remembering what we need to. I've just remembered what we need to do in the previous system to now change everything. So a bit daunting, but yeah, getting the managers up to speed and then filtering it down to the team. So that's been a bit of a thing this week. Balls dropped. My daughter's been doing tests all week at school, so we've been testing her and she's like, can you test me? So everyone's been testing her at home and she's
what year
like,
is she?
She's year 10.
Oh yes, and my son.
Your daughter wants you to test her.
Yeah.
I'm already
Whereas my son never. It was the complete opposite to my son. like my son, we'd have to sit him down and say, you have to do this, you have to write. She just gets on with it, and she'll say, can you test me?
Ah, daughters.
So complete opposite. And then she did work really, really hard, and then she had a test. I was busy and didn't even think she had it, and it was like 8:30 in the evening. She's like, Mummy, you didn't even ask me today how my test went. And then obviously I felt so guilty, and I was like, oh my God, she's worked so hard, I'm really sorry, how did it go? And then I couldn't recap from that. I mean, she didn't make me feel guilty, but obviously naturally you do as a mother.
So this is the problem, isn't it? Guilt we carry around for stuff that our kids moved on from like the previous day.
Yeah.
But
She would have forgotten about it. But.
Such is life. Now, sticking with you for a second, Angie, can we just explain to us a bit? I mean, you know, most people listening to this podcast will all be in the automotive industry in some respect, but some of them might not know a lot about Genesis. You know, it's still, I suppose, relatively new to market. Maybe not in the light of all the Chinese that have come in so far. Maybe it's suddenly traditional and legacy. But explain a bit about Genesis' approach to customer relations and retail in the UK, because I remember that when you guys came to Europe, one of the things that stood out is that you came to Europe gunning for female consumers, you know, and okay, how do we engage women? Do we need to do test drives from home? Do we need to offer more kind of boutique, glam shop fronts? What, you know, people not commissioned? I don't know, sum it up for me. What's it all about?
So when Genesis first launched in and came to Europe, obviously we wanted to stand out. So obviously Europe being, you know, luxury, the home of luxury really, so we wanted to stand up. We needed to do something different, so we needed to do something quite distinctive. So for us it was about having transparency and basing everything, our ethos really, on service and customer service. So a customer can sit at home online in Scotland and, you know, configure a car, buy a car, and equally a customer can come into a retail environment with our retailers all in either studio, and they'll get the same price. So it is a one price model, which we don't always get in the automotive industry. So that was one thing which really stood out. And also for Genesis, there's a Korean saying which, you know, they thrive on, which is called son nim, and that means anyone that comes into your studio, into your area, you invite them you treat them like a guest into your home. So that's what we try to create. And seeing the shop fronts in Westfield and Battersea, they're very open, they're very inviting. It's a lovely environment to you know, just to walk around and get familiar with the cars.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed when I came in. These are things that 10 years ago sounded like minor details, and now I think are major things for customers, especially women. But the materials that you can see when you walk in, so not even the cars, but just what's covering the walls, there's a lot of kind of like, I don't know what you call it, like copper to me or something. Yeah. It's a copper. You know, but it looks a bit glam, it looks a bit luxe, it looks like, it doesn't look like a car showroom on an industrial estate.
No. And the thing is, with Genesis, wherever you go in the world, they will try to make the studios all look the same. So there is one in Korea, I've been to Korea a couple of times, that it's like a replica of the Westfield studio. It looks like you're in Westfield, but you're actually in Korea. So all the textures and things like that, they will try to replicate to make them unified.
Right, okay. Emma, you know, we can talk about luxury, and we can talk about luxury car companies, and then we can talk about Rolls-Royce, because in many ways, sounds like I'm kind of blowing smoke up, you'd say it's not a car company, but it's so, the price points, the people you deal with, it's so much beyond the realms of your nearest competitors in the car world that, you know, I totally get it. You're more aligning yourself, benchmarking yourself with yacht companies, with villas abroad, with art collections, with whatever. And all that kind of puts Rolls-Royce on this pedestal where I think people think, well, it's just so... It must be so arrogant. It must be so male. It must be so... And actually, the last 10 years of me with Rolls-Royce have been the whole communication side of the business was all men. And now it's all women. What sort of company is it to work for and be in?
It's quite the opposite of an arrogant company, actually. I think it's really interesting that when people have this perception that actually if they've had any contact with the mark, then they don't have that anymore. Because if you go to our sort of retailers, our dealers these days, they've been transformed into this much more sort of, not a car showroom, but a luxury sort of boutique where we've got we call it speakeasy bar, and people come in. I was in Abu Dhabi last week. They told me that they've got one client who comes in every morning for his breakfast, and it's like it's sort of part of the family kind of thing. And it is a family. I know that sounds like a ridiculous cliche, but I've been there for a couple of years now, and I know lots and lots of people walking around in Goodwood, everyone's very friendly. You stop and say hello and have a chat. It's a very open environment. I think there's lots of diversity there.
That's going to be my next question.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 50 nationalities represented at Goodwood. That's around 2,500 people who work there, and there are plenty of women as well. But it's just a really friendly, nice, quite young place to work. I think our average age is just under 40 of the people who are working there.
Really?
So it's,
mind you, your average customer is what, 42 or something?
Yes. Yeah, so it works quite well, I guess, from that point of view. So I think it's you're right to say that we benchmark ourselves against luxury brands. We are a luxury company, a house of luxury, if you like, and it happens to be that our product is a rather magnificent motor car. I mean, you've seen some of our cars up close and personal, and they are pretty impressive and luxurious objects. They're some of them are masterpieces. Some of the one-offs that we do in the collection cars in particular. But any client can make it their own masterpiece, their reflection of themselves, if you like.
And they are in increasing numbers, aren't they?
Absolutely, that's right. I mean, last year our the bespoke value of what we do was up by 10% on average per car. So it's I think the clients are really getting in with that. You don't sort of come and buy a car off the lot. It's not that concept at all. It's about the relationship. It's about getting to know the client getting to know us, and understanding what the absolutely astonishing capabilities are of our people, and what you can do, what you can achieve, and making that motor car so special and personal to yourself. It's almost a reflection of you and your personality.
I mean, I've been to you guys at Goodwood to look round HQ, as it were, but I don't think I've ever been into an actual, I mean, what do you even call them? Do you call them stores, dealers? What do you call them?
Our dealer partners.
Atelier.
Yeah,
Dealer
and
partners.
Atelier is part of it. That's where you go to commission your car.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yes.
And how does your customer approach differ from Angie's, or is it very similar? I mean, do you get walk-ins? Do you know who all your prospective customers are? How does that relationship work?
I think a lot about Rolls-Royce is to do with the experience that you have with the brand. So we're really keen to get people to come and know us before you even start that conversation. Really, it's important that we understand the client as well as them understanding us, so that we can really make sure that experience is outstanding. It's the Rolls-Royce of experiences. I think our clients are very used to the luxury world. They're used to how they're treated by luxury brands, and they quite rightly expect at least the same from us.
So it's not a hard sell.
It's not it's not a hard sell. And I think people often we have some lovely stories of people who've done really well in their lives and their careers, obviously, and they sort of say, oh, I've dreamt of owning a Rolls Royce since I was a child. I used to have pictures of them up in my wall or whatever it was, and now finally, I'm celebrating my success, or I'm celebrating my achievement, whatever it is, or maybe just a life milestone, a marriage or a birth of a child or something, with my car.
See, now that's really nice, because I just assumed we got to the point with the kind of ultra high net worthers where they were just kind of, I'll just have one of those, I've forgotten I have it, I've got 15 Rolls Royces, I don't know where they are. It kind of becomes meaningless. So it's lovely too that there are still people who are like, no, I've been dreaming of this since I was
Oh, absolutely.
born.
Yeah. Really, really importantly. And then of course, the interesting thing, I mean, we sometimes have clients who come to take delivery of their car at Goodwood, and they've spent a long time working with us to create this masterpiece, this motor car, and they have a lovely ceremony where they kind of collect it, and it's all wonderful, and they're delighted, and they've been waiting a couple of years for it to actually be built, and then after about 10-15 minutes, they sort of turn to you and they say, but what am I going to do now? Because they've enjoyed the process so much, they've enjoyed that engagement with us so much, that they kind of it's going to be a chunk of their life missing, and that's
it's a whole experience, isn't it? I think in Genesis, because the two studios, they're experience centres, so we don't actually sell from them. It's no hard sale. It's just customers will come in, they will look and feel, sit in the cars. They'll be there for an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. The team, the brand ambassadors will go through, like you say, it is just an experience, because, like you say, it's a relatively new brand still. A lot of people haven't heard of it. So it will be a lovely experience in the showrooms or in the studios, and then they'll just look and see what colours they can do it, what colours they can have in the cars, their interiors, their exteriors. So it is a whole experience. And then it's from that point they're sort of building their rapport because it's a brand new brand they might not have heard of. So yeah, no, it's similar in terms of experience.
What we're talking about here, this is how it should be, because you know, the amount of money that people spend on their cars, most on a finance deal, so most, you know, a month, let's say you're spending anywhere between 300 and £1,000 a month. It's a serious amount of outlay. It should be a pleasurable experience. You know, we talk in this series about what the automotive world can learn from the fashion world. And I think if you're going to spend a massive amount of money on a handbag for your 40th, you're going to spend weeks, months getting excited about that, doing the prep, as you say, Emma, looking up online, fiddling around with it in different colours and so on, and the day comes to come get it. But for most people, buying a car isn't like that. And there's no reason why, just because it's Rolls Royce, that means that experience exists. You know, I think there's something there for OEMs to take away and retailers about actually trying to extend that buying process and that relationship and get people to the point where they get excited about it. Anyway, you know, that's what I think. That's my food for thought. Angie, I really want to hear, we've spoken about this before, but I want you to talk about it again, about your experience of trying to get a job in the automotive industry, because talk about lessons for all of us. You know, you tell us about, you know, you wanted to work in automotive, which for a start, the industry should be on its knees begging women to come and do that who actually genuinely have a passion. Tell me about that and what happened.
So after working I progressed to senior manager in Harrods. So probably after about 4 years, 5 years, and I know I always wanted to get into automotive, but I obviously needed to have some management experience and some senior manager experience, heading up a larger team, etc. So I started to apply to some premium brands in automotive. This went on for quite a period of time. I didn't get anywhere. I didn't get an interview in any brand at all. I then thought, what I can do, I wanted to stand out, because at that point everyone was doing, you know, it was online, applying through online, going through websites, etc. So I thought I'd write to one particular brand. I wrote a letter, like a covering letter, attached my CV back to old school really, and tried to see, you know, that MD will open that letter, so that's a bit different, I'll stand out. Again, I didn't get anything, no interview. And for me, I felt I had transferable skills. Like as a manager, I can transfer them. And it's all about service. It's all about that luxury customer service. So really, if I want to work for a luxury premium brand, I can transfer my skills. So I didn't get anywhere. And then quite a few years later, I was headhunted and I got offered the role with Genesis. So for me, it was like a perfect role. So it was marrying, you know, my luxury background as well as my passion for automotive. So I started as a studio manager at Westfield, and then 6 months afterwards, they asked me to look after all our regional Genesis personal assistants as well as the Westfield studio. We went through a restructure, and now I look after and head up the Westfield and Battersea studio. So I've been there 3 years, and you know, it's a love for me. It's the dream job. I've got luxury and I've got automotive. So it's been amazing.
So you were headhunted, were you?
Yes.
So it sounds like Genesis was specifically looking for somebody.
Yeah, they wanted somebody
yeah.
with luxury background. And to be honest, even now when I'm recruiting, I don't necessarily look for anyone with automotive background, because we're all about service and giving that amazing, exceptional service. As are some brands do that. I mean, not all brands, as we know. But I actually look for people in either in hospitality or retail, luxury retail, because I feel they're the people that they want to give that service. They like talking to people. They like people. So, you know, you have to be a people person, I think, to be able to deliver that naturally.
But just, you know, going back to the rejections or being ignored, I suppose would be more accurate. It just, to me, blows my mind, because my whole 25 years in the automotive industry, I'm constantly reaching outside of automotive to see not only how other industries are doing it and what we could all learn in our bits of our industry about it, but also women. If I'm trying to do stuff on women, okay, let's look at women's behaviour and emotional attachment and engagement and passions outside of automotive. Again, let's see how women, what sort of retail experiences do they like? What sort of brands and products do they respond to? What sort of marcoms do they respond to? And then you take it in, because as you say, talk about transferable skills. Most stuff is transferable. You know, you learn the nuts and bolts on the job. I did. I didn't have a clue about motoring journalism. I was a journalist first and switched into motoring. So why wouldn't you be in retail outside of automotive and come in? There's huge benefits for the industry.
You have to teach one or the other, right? You either have to teach car or you have to teach retail or luxury or whatever it is. I think you not many people, unless you get them straight out of college, are gonna, and in which case they've got nothing, are gonna have both of those things together. So it's you can teach. In my experience, a bit like you, I'm fairly agnostic when it comes to what I'm looking for in background. I either want luxury or I need an automotive sort of background. And actually,
is this for when you're hiring?
For when I'm hiring, and my tendency, it depends on the candidate genuinely. And I've in the last couple of years I've hired pretty equally both out of those fields, but luxury is interesting to me because that they understand the world that we're in. We're not and again, it sounds pretentious. We don't see ourselves as a car company, and we don't want to project ourselves as a car company. We're a luxury house. So that's why, to me, it's important that they understand that world and feel comfortable in it as well, and really kind of get to grips with that whole side of service and the importance of that relationship. An experience, to come back to that again.
What do you do? I've just thought of this question, so I'm just throwing this one at you. But, thinking about, we don't think of ourselves as a car brand. What approach do you guys take in comms to imagery of the cars and how you do that? Because I've always thought, I'm sure I remember somebody saying to me at Rolls-Royce years ago, God, the last thing we want, and I fully agreed, is a picture of, a phantom on a gravel drive outside a big house, and that's the kind of press imagery that goes out about it. But I just, it's been picking up on Jaguar, actually, and the rebrand of Jaguar, and Elon Musk saying, do you even sell cars? There's no cars in your imagery. I was like, well, of course there's no cars in imagery. You're not trying to sell a product. You're trying to sell a brand. You're trying to sell an aesthetic. You're trying to sell emotion.
It's a lifestyle. It's exactly, emotion. I think that's the real word for it. And it's a lifestyle. It's a can you see yourself in this picture? Can you see yourself, or is this the kind of world that you want to be in? And I think that's what So we do also have pictures of cars for our press images. Otherwise, people like you get really cross with us.
I suppose a hint of a car is helpful.
Where's the back? Yeah, I need the front three-quarter.
Front three-quarter. Yeah, that's right. Static front three-quarter.
So we need to make sure we've got our bases covered for the broad range of media that we're engaging with. I mean, there was a shift a few years ago from concentrating mainly on automotive media, a big shift towards luxury and lifestyle media, and luckily you straddle both those worlds, Erin, which is very helpful of you. So that's meant that we've also kind of reflected on where do we go, what do we do when we invite media for an event? Do we, is it all about driving, or is it as much, if not more, about the lifestyle? Because I think it's sometimes hard to understand. Nobody needs a Rolls Royce, right? No, it's sometimes.
I do.
Yeah, sometimes I think I do as well. Especially this morning, I was quite glad. Anyway, when I started this job, before I actually officially started, I was given a sort of onboarding, come with me to a few places by my predecessor very, very generously, and I remember the first experience was I landed at Nice Airport, got out of the plane. There was the car waiting, with a fabulous, all of our product experts, drivers. They're all brilliant. They're a bit like the sort of I guess they're a bit like your people who kind of explain the car, but in a very sort of friendly way.
Right, yeah.
And you arrive at this fabulous hotel, and suddenly that car makes absolute sense. Suddenly it makes complete sense because that is the lifestyle of our clients. It's not my lifestyle, sadly, but that's the lifestyle of the client, and so you have to put the product into that world, for it to make sense.
Yeah. Well, now, dun dun dun, it's time for podcast pit stop. We're halfway through. It's the quick fire round. The moment you're both terribly excited about, I can tell. Angie, let's start with you. Are you ready? Simple yes, no will do.
Okay, go for it.
Miro or whiteboard?
Whiteboard.
Radio 2 or Radio 4?
Radio 2. Neither really.
Neither really. What do you listen to?
Heart.
SUV or estate?
SUV always.
Wrong. Podcast or music?
Music.
Hotel or Airbnb?
Hotel always.
Speed hump or speed cushion?
Speed cushion.
More chance to straddle. Anyway, Emma, solo or social?
Solo.
Manual or automatic?
It's really hard these days to get a manual. Sorry, manual.
Right. Supermarket shop or online order?
Oh, on supermarket. It's too confusing.
T-junction or roundabout?
Roundabout.
Weights or yoga?
Oh, cripes, neither.
Good, nice. Text or WhatsApp?
WhatsApp.
Oh, look at you. Bang on trend with the young people. Excellent. Well done. You've both passed. Back to the serious side of things. Emma, I really want to ask you about having a global role, because I know you don't like talking about being a woman for kind of being a woman's sake, or you slightly. You can come back and say if I'm wrong there, but I sense a slight hesitation around it. But I do think it's fascinating to talk to women who are mothers who have full on global roles about how the hell you make that work, because that's different time zones.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I had a global role before this one. When I was in Munich, I had a global role there. So, and I well remember the phone call. I was freelancing at the time, and it was all very flexible. And I sort of had someone a babysitter effectively, who I'd call in if necessary. But, then it was like, would you like this job? It sounded fabulous. Oh, and by the way, it needs to be full time. And it was just like, well, my kids were quite small still in those days. And that was a very scary step to take. So I think the answer to your question is with a lot of help. That's how you do it. You need a lot of support, be that from your partner, or the father of your children, or from family, or from other resources that you can buy in, for want of a better word. You need a lot of help, and you need to be able to trust all of those people. Your kids ideally need to get on with them really well.
Well, what about for you personally? Is it lonely? Is it exhausting? Do you sometimes think when you're on another plane?
Honestly, when they were really small, it was like going on holiday. It was, you're in this lovely hotel, you don't need to cook, you don't need to clean, and also I think really importantly, the way I always did it, which I've subsequently learned is not the way other people do it, and this is when going back to the support structure, if I'm away, I'm away. Okay. It's not, I'm not doing all of the, they've got to go to this and they've got to do, and have you remembered it's so-and-so's birthday? And I'm effectively not there. I'm out of the picture. I'm not phoning up every day to check everything's all right.
And is that because that would just be too stressful or just wouldn't work, too inefficient?
I never really thought about it. The only thing I actually really thought about was whether or not you sort of are going to phone the kids. And I've got a personal trauma, which is why I decided not to do it. When I was little, I was staying with my grandmother one time, and I was having a lovely time until my mum phoned me. And it just made me so home. Okay. Like I really missed. I was having a super time. Like, it was great, but that just made me miss her. And it would have. And so, my children were quite small at the time. I didn't really have a conversation with them about it. I just didn't.
That's fascinating. No. I have exactly the same experience. I'm grew up with divorced parents and single working mum, and I remember the same thing. And I'm divorced, and when my kids were little, I took the same approach to you. Actually, if they're with their dad, I just don't call. So
I just think it's just it's better for me because I've got that sort of headspace and I'm not thinking about it. I mean, obviously, clearly in an emergency, obviously, but thankfully that's not ever.
See, I've done the opposite. I've been to Korea a couple of times, and both of those occasions were like 8-9 days I've been away. My husband would do everything in terms of, he does the cooking anyway. That's the one thing I don't do. I hate it. But he would do all of that. But even when I was in Korea, when the time difference, like when my daughter would just wake up, I would still call her, say, morning, have a good day. So I was still doing that after school. I still called. So it was more on me, to be fair. And it wasn't that she was demanding it or saying it. I think it was just the guilt with me. So I was trying to not let her, there'll be no difference whether I'm there or not. I'll still speak to you when you come from school. I'll still speak to you in the morning. So I made it harder for myself, I think, a little bit. But then she didn't mind that I was away. It was fully to have a fluid conversation with, my husband and her and my son. It was every day like I was there. So I made it no difference, but it was harder.
And what, Angie, because I hear a lot from retailers that it's, always has been quite a harsh environment in terms of hours and not very friendly to a lot of women who are looking for flexi working or part-time or to work around school hours. How have you found it in automotive retail?
So with Genesis, I think I'm fortunate so we're in shopping malls, so we are trading for like 12 hours, but the team have 2 shifts, so they're good to go. It's 8-hour days, so it's fine. Me personally, I travel quite a bit, so I'm based in the studios every day, so I do probably 2.5 hours drive each way. So by the time I sort of get home, it is more or less 7 o'clock. So anytime between 6:30 and 7 o'clock. So then by the time at least dinner's done. But everything else, like, by the time you sort the house up, my husband doesn't clean like I clean. And, yes, you can cook, but the house is an absolute, the kitchen will take you just as long to clean it. But it's by the time I actually sit down, it's probably about 9:30 of an evening each night. So, but from Genesis and Automotive brand, it's an 8-hour day for everyone. So it's not like it would I would imagine in a showroom where it is long hours. We don't have to do that. So I suppose the benefit is of in a shopping mall as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a new side of automotive retail that it's fairly recent.
And it's good in terms of like when families come, because the whole family will come to shopping at Battersea or Westfield, and they all come and see the cars together at the same time, especially on a weekend. So it's quite inviting for that environment.
How is that with weekends? Are you there at weekends?
No, I don't work weekends. That is my one way off. Unless it's something big or an event or something going on. But other than that, no. Yeah. Weekends I don't do.
You won't believe it, but we are nearly out of time already. So we're into tips and tricks for women listening, parents of girls listening. And I've got to start with you because I'm sure people out there will really want to work for Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce obviously employs people in all different strands, your communications, engineering, design, retail, whatever it is. Yes. But for people who have just set their sights on the brand, what can you offer up in the way of, what sort of place it is, give us a flavour of roles that are available. What's available right now?
So please look at our careers page on the internet. In all seriousness,
do you do apprenticeships?
We do a lot of apprenticeship. We've got 100 apprentices at the moment, and wow. that gets bigger every year. And they're in all sorts of areas of the company as well, not only in the sort of the manufacturing and production side of things. They're also in because there are degree apprentices now, right? Which I think is a fantastic thing to do. Yeah. So it's really in all areas of the business. We've got apprenticeships. We have interns. We have grads who come to us as well. We take future talent very seriously for obvious reasons that, otherwise we're going to, not succeed as we are at the moment. So I think that the thing to do is we're open-minded. So be open-minded about Rolls-Royce and we've got sail makers, we've got artists, we've got tailors, we've got people who've come from all sorts of different sort of business-based backgrounds. We've got lots and lots of different people who are working with us. So I think also one of the good things about Rolls-Royce is being quite a small company. There's a lot of movement within the company, so you're not pigeonholed. And if you get there and you're doing something and then you see, what's that over there, and that looks really interesting, there's a lot of opportunity to go and try that out as well.
I love that. That's great. Thank you. And Angie, what about people looking to go into retail? I mean, obviously your retail, as you say, it's a different environment, maybe with different prospects and different experiences from out-of-town dealers. But so let's just take where you are.
So I think with Genesis and where I am, I think if you generally would, like I say, we're looking for luxury, or we're looking for retail background, or really it's if you're a people person, I think that's one of the key things. You will enjoy any role. So I have a 60-40 split with male and female at the minute, not by design. It's just I think it's taking time for females to come and apply for the roles. So ideally if they work half and half or 60-40 in females, it makes no difference to us. So I just think it's people that generally, you have an interest, you just go for it, and you put the effort in and you will succeed. And I think I'm a role model of that. You've just got to keep on trying. And at Genesis, we exactly how I've got into the role, that's how, we'll get females into the role. So it's, we're all up for that.
Resilience is key.
Yep.
Thank you both so much. It's been really great chatting to you. Thank you to everyone who's listening. Please like and subscribe, and lots more in the series where this came from. Thank you.
Thanks.